Making these Ozploitation movies during the 70s, such as Death Cheaters, Stunt Rock, Kung Fu Killers, Stuntman, to name a few, was there more of a profound sense of the auteur as a filmmaker, being able to create something artistic you felt people would want to see? As you become more of a success and your career advances to the various stages, was there more pressure by studios to make movies more commercially viable? And how do you as a filmmaker balance the commercial viability of movies seat-filling while also adding in your own artistic expression?
I never thought of myself as an auteur simply because I probably didn't know what one was. I never went to film school. I never went to university. I have educated myself. Though I had a very good education at Wellington College, public school I went to in England, which is kind of like having the first 2 years of university. Anyway, I left school at 18, with a pretty good education, and that has served me well. But I didn't see the point of spending 3 years watching films and talking about them and obviously studying them. I wanted to get out there and be involved in their making and not wait 3 years. And I think film school was not considered as essential then as it was. I mean, it was probably a pretty good way of getting into the BBC or something, if you had a degree or something from the London School of Film Technique. But yeah, it wasn't going to get you an entry-level job in the cutting room, and that's really where I was going to gravitate to. Though I was a clapper loader, a pretty bad one too, in one of my early jobs. So in my early films, I was firstly just saying, how can I make this watchable and entertaining for the amount of money I have? I have $8,000 to make a kind of little documentary about Kung Fu featuring Bruce Lee, and as I'm flying to Hong Kong, Bruce dies. So I end up turning it into a portrait of the Hong Kong, of the new emerging Chinese cinema, with Bruce Lee as its big hero and lamented loss. And I instead of it being an aborted project, it turned out to be quite an okay little clip show. Really, I was using I shot for 5 or 6 days, but I used a lot of clips from movies that they gave me. But to me it was like it was a military campaign. How was I going to stretch those resources and make something that was interesting? And so I got satisfaction out of that, but it meant that I had to do a lot of things myself, and obviously I controlled everything. So in that regard, I suppose I was an auteur, but I never thought of myself in the terms of the glory of being an auteur. I'm just, I like to drive in any movie, and people who hire me have understood that. And even though there are parameters that you have to work within with your producers who have, managed to do the hard part, which is raise the money, then, I've worked best with people who get me and, help me drive in the best, in the most accurate way possible, let's say. So I've had very supportive producers in general who just said, okay, do your thing and get us home and get us something we can sell. And so I'm not looking at it from the production, or the industrial side of it, let's say. From the creative side, and which is very important to me, I'm not a snob, and I think, well, these are my resources. How can I make the best out of them? And and hopefully I can expand the vision of the project by being clever. And but I have obviously certain sort of political leanings, let's say, and they have demonstrated themselves. I mean, I suppose in a way, Man from Hong Kong, it reflects my philosophy. I wanted to do a reversed, a reverse of an American picture where the super strong, super smart, fast with his fists and guns, whatever hero comes to Asia beds a few Asian women, beats up all the bad guys who somehow much more flexible than him. He's noticed in fight scenes with Americans, with Chinese, and then he's a big hero. So what about if we turn that on its head and we've got a Chinese Dirty Harry coming to Australia and having a romance with two beautiful Australian women and beating up a lot of Australians, and clearly giving a lot of shit to two is subconsciously racist cops who reflect a kind of a racist attitude to Asians in general. But I experienced coming from England to Australia in the early 60s, mid 60s. So it's not that I'm not suggesting. It's just that I think perhaps all of us white people don't realize how unconsciously we have been racist in our lives, but we are learning. But I wanted in 1974 when I shot it to reflect that little that racist undercurrent, but do it with humor. And so I wanted a film in which the Chinese hero does all the things that the Western hero normally does when it comes to Asia, and is clearly smarter, braver than the two cops. So in that regard, there was a sort of a kind of little bit of a political message there, I suppose. Let's say it reflected my personal sensibility. Dead End Drive-In also reflects my personal political sensibility. I wanted to it was shot in 1985, and what resonated with me up to that point was how the Vietnamese boat people, refugees, were treated in Australia in the late 70s after the fall of Saigon and the flood of refugees that came to Australia. And many of them most of them made very good lives in Australia, but they were resented. And I wanted to again point to racial prejudice within the warm embrace of an exploitation picture. So people might actually, they might, find the message, sneak up on them.
The Man from Hong Kong is such an incredible debut film, your first narrative action film. The action sequences are so big, they're spectacular. There's never a dull moment. I mean, you have it all. Amazing fight choreography, exciting car chases, high wire work, hand gliding, explosions galore. For your first, narrative film, it must have really been a monumental task directing this feature. And I was wondering, with all the problems coming at you daily on set, what do you think the single biggest challenge was during filming that?
I mean, every day there's a fusillade of challenges coming at you. You're directing a star who doesn't speak English very well and has directed 8 movies himself, written, produced, and directed, and starred, and the king of his movie kingdom. And I'm a 28-year-old first-time director who's made dramatized documentaries and clip shows. And so that was a learning curve. I knew I had something in what I'd written and in all the locations that I'd chosen, the cast that I'd chosen. I mean, Wong Yu and Lazenby were chosen for me, but I was very glad to have them. I mean, the original story was, I wrote a 6-page story that I'd hoped to give to Bruce Lee at our interview, but that was not to be. So that story, which I had the ironic title of Yellow Peril on the title page. I mean, one man's irony is another cultural insult. Is another cultural insult, which Raymond Chow pointed out to me. He understood where I came from. I know you're saying, that you're actually reversing the racism, but no one's going to get that going in. And maybe only a few people are going to grasp it coming out. So, just stop trying to be so clever, and because you're actually you're doing the reverse of what you think they're doing. So that was a good lesson for me. And therefore, the title changed to The Man from Hong Kong, or as the Americans initially called it, The Dragonflies, which might have made more sense if they had not sort of minimized the hang gliding in their promotional material. But they had another movie called Skyriders coming up, but they didn't want to diminish its hang gliding impact. You never know what might happen in the marketing of your film when it goes out into that treacherous commercial jungle with lots of people elbowing sharply for dominance.